Hi guys, and welcome to my review of the 7Hz 02. I know I'm perhaps a little bit late to the party. The 02 has already been out for about a month now, but anyway, with so many IEMs to review and you know, Christmas and so on, it just was left behind. Nevertheless, I did do a lot of listening to it, and I did compare it with the other single DDs at around the $20 to $25 price bracket that I thought would make sense. And well, I now bring you the review. Obviously, I've got two versions here. Well, two of the color choices. This bluish one, transparent, and this copper smoked black shell version as well. Well, the reason for that was, first of all, because I was curious to see how they looked, because the original ones were all these fixed colors, you know, these white, or they were full black, or they were like this one that I have here, the ruby red. So I wanted to see how they looked in the new transparent shell, and also because I wanted to a certain point, check out how was the QC. And much like the original Zero, which I have here, I've got here one, two, three, plus this one 4, and I've actually got a fifth one. All of them actually measured very close to each other, so I can confidently say that the QC with the Zero does seem to have been done pretty solidly done. And for an IEM that was $20, under $20 at the time, that's pretty commendable. Anyway, with regards to the new one, at least these two that I have, I might get a third one just for the sake of getting it, also measured very equal. So I think I can with a certain amount of confidence also say that it seems like the QC is not an issue, and I also haven't heard anybody complaining about the QC. Anyway, the shell is basically the same as the previous one. When I say basically the same, it's exactly the same in terms of its shape and everything, in size and so on. The only thing that has changed is its finish, the transparent and so on and so on. And the funny thing actually is, although it's got this unusual kind of shape, whatever you want to call it, it does fit quite nicely. I don't like the stock tips. I have to say that the stock tips, I've never liked them. That's why I'm not using the stock tips. I've got the stock tips on this one just for you guys to see it. The stock tips, I think, are a bit of a letdown. And the stock cable as well, which, okay, fair enough, $20 and so on. You can try and make an argument for that. I've seen better things at the same price, okay? Actually, the tips that come with the Tanstrom one are better. The tips that actually come with the EW100 are better. Even the tips that come with the 1 year are better. So I don't think that will be a valid, at least not for me, a valid argument. So there you have it. In terms of the fit, it fits nicely. It isolates quite nicely once you have a nice tip. The best tip that works with the Zero, in my opinion, be it the Zero, the original one, or the 02, is these BGVP wide bores. They work absolutely flawlessly with this IEM. If it's the KBE 07s in the medium bore, let's say, it works also quite well, but I like the wide bores on the Zero. The Zero just takes very well those tips, as well as does the 1 year, for example. The 1 year also with the wide bores works very well. So basically that covers it. In terms of hardware, it's a solidly built shell. It seems that the driver that they used is a good driver, well, at least better than the original. But there are obviously certain things which I'll get to it in a second. But anyway, that's the physical aspect of the 02. What did I bring out here to compare with the 02? And again, you guys know that I could have taken out a whole lot of other IEMs to compare it, but I thought it would be interesting to just compare it to these ones, because these ones kind of are the more popular ones, I guess, to a certain extent. I didn't include any KZs here for this comparison, although if you guys do want me to then compare the 0 to a KZ, I'll gladly do it, not a problem. Anyway, I've got there the Celeste Wyvern on top, Tanstrom 1, the Zigat Nuo, EW100, 1 year in this jade green finish. Looks very nice, actually, I must say. Chu 2, and then the original 0 and the 02, obviously. On the 02, they've completely departed from the original signature of the Zero, which was a it was a mature signature. It was a signature that kind of was very similar to the signature of the original True. Actually, I'm not gonna delve too much into it, but apparently the True and the Zero used exactly the same driver, and somehow I get the feeling that the driver used in the 02 and the True 2 is also the same driver, and you'll see why I say that in a second when I'll actually show you the graphs. They graph very similarly and they sound very similarly. But the sound of the original Zero was a sound which was very much focused on mids. So in terms of vocals and that presentation was very well done. Vocals and detailed retrieval, it was full of details and so on and so forth. But the bass was a little bit on the lean side. It was a little bit better than the True, but it was a little bit on the lean side. But nevertheless, it offered us a mature signature, a signature which was, for those that could not afford more expensive IEMs that usually are tuned in that manner, it offered us a very properly tuned IEM, much like the True, which was, you could almost say it was the first one to have that type of tuning. It offered a very nice tuning of what a kind of more detailed IEM can sound like, but at a budget, okay? And so obviously it gathered its followers, it gathered its people that were of course happy with its sound, and for the most part I was happy as well. I do say that the wide bores do open up the sound a little bit more, in my opinion, and make it a little bit better. At the same time, also reducing, I'm not going to call it aggressiveness, but I'm going to call it a little bit excessive energy sometimes in certain songs. Okay, the 02, they have basically, and when I show you the graphs, you'll see what I mean. They've basically maintained the mids and the treble the same. Maybe the treble has come down ever so slightly a little bit, at least graphically, it seems that way. But they've given it a healthy dose of bass. So they've basically given the bass to the 0 that it needed, in my opinion at least. And that added bass just made the 0 a completely different beast. Very much like the True with the True 2, what they basically did was give it more bass and make it a more lively, more engaging, more satisfying sound. Okay, they've done, 7Hz has done basically the same thing here. Some will argue that, by giving all that bass, you've now lost a little bit of detail and so on and so forth, and the mids are not what they used to be. Fair enough, granted, but if I have to sit back and ponder what I had before, what I now have, what I gained, what I lost, what I gained, what I lost here, I think that the 02 is the better IEM. Okay, it's more the little bit of detail that I might have lost by having that extra bass or cleanliness, let's put it that way, which honestly I didn't really see it that way. It was more than made up for by this added energy in the bass, which made songs like Ain't No Sunshine When She's Gone, for example, from Bobby Blue Bland, sound a whole of a lot more engaging, a whole of a lot more interesting. Against the Wind from Victory as well, the same situation. And if I was to go into like a Tell Me from Tin Liquor, which is a more EDM style, it made it capable of doing that song with that energy that it needed. And unless you really are a bass adverse, then okay, fine, go for the 0. But if you want to have, let's say, a presentation, which is, I'm not even going to go the more correct presentation, but a presentation that can be fun, the 02 is the wiser, the more sensible choice. All right. So, as I was saying, the bass is been given the necessary energy. That energy comes coupled with a little bit more of sub bass presence as well. So everything, there's a little bit of rumble. There's a more coherent presentation of the lower frequencies. That's I think the best way I can put it. Mids, they are. This is just over $20. So let's not start wanting to nit and pick and complain and so on. Mids are very good. The mids of the 02 are very, very nice. There's really nothing I can complain about. Yes, on the occasional female vocal, it might sound, they might be a little bit recessed because of that bass energy that you have, which emphasizes unnecessarily. But honestly, for the majority of the songs that I listen to, mids are perfect. And then it still got and still maintained a lot of that treble that it used to have before, with the benefit that if before it was on occasion a little bit too much, because it lacked that bass to kind of camouflage that excessive. On now the treble seems to me, and for what I listen to and for what I like listening to, perfect. I didn't find the treble to be excessive. I didn't find the treble to be overly, even the occasional harshness, or no, I wouldn't say harshness, the occasional lack of polish, okay, that the original one had. Now it's way smoother. It's much better, and it's all down to the fact that you have that more energy in the bass to just, help out the top end sound a little bit more tame, a little bit more smoother, a little bit more silky. Okay. So how does the Zero then compare with the rest of the IEMs that I have here, and a few others which I can compare if you guys really do want? Let's make something perfectly clear here. The biggest difference that you will find, and because they all have a very similar tuning, is I think the only one here that really has a different style of tuning is the one. Okay, but all of them have got a very much a Harman style of tune. Okay, and the biggest difference that you will find in all of them is the amount of bass that's there, because the quality, give or take, is always basically the same thing. So it's the amount of bass that you have and how that amount of bass then affects the mids and the highs. Okay, it affects the mids and the highs in terms of clarity, the mids and the highs in terms of their detail, the technicalities of the imaging, the sound stage, and so on and so forth. That's the biggest difference that you will find. Fair enough, you can play around with tips, you can play around with sources to try and extract a little bit more out of it, but at the end of the day, and I'm not in any way trying to be disrespectful to anybody. I mean, if a $20 IEM or $25 IEM is the absolute maximum you can afford, then by all means try and get the maximum performance out of it that you can. But we have to be kind of sensible. You're not going to spend now $100 on a cable for an IEM that costs 20. You're not going to be spending also crazy amounts of money on tips, because if you factor in that cable, if you're going to spend, let's say for the sake of you're going to buy some Aslas, you spend $30 on tips, and then you spend another $100 on a cable, so that's 130 plus, it's $150, $160. What can you get for $150, $160? Maybe you can get a hell of a lot better of an IEM. Maybe you could buy yourself an S12, an original S12, or maybe you can buy yourself an MP145, or maybe you can buy yourself a Keyfine planar. And all of these are planars, which are very, very good. You can even buy yourself a T10 as well, another planar, and still save a lot of money. So let's keep this balance here present. Compared to the, I'll start here with the Zero. Compared to the Zero, this is just a better IEM. End of story. It does much of what the Zero did in terms of its clarity, detail, resolution, everything, but improves upon the bass. So it's just a better IEM. So that's out of the way. Okay, so let's get that out of the way. Compared, I've got, by the way, I didn't mention, the reason why I've got 2 years, I've actually got this one connected up to that Moondrop DSP cable, which is another review that I will be making, but that's it. That's why I've got the 2 of them here also. Compare them to the EW100. The biggest difference that you will find is that the EW100 doesn't have the amount of bass that the 02 has. It doesn't. In terms of quantity. Quality, it's about the same. It just doesn't have the quantity of the bass. The interesting thing about the EW100 is, although it is slightly more focused on the mids and the highs, it has got a nice, clean presentation that never is as harsh as the original Zero was, or as overly energetic, let's put it that way. So it is one of the recs that I usually give at $100 if what you want is not so much of a bass presentation, but you want an IEM that's very detailed, very clean, and kind of goes along the lines of what the Wyvern, the 1 year also does. So compared here to the 02, going back here quickly to the EW100, I'm not going to say that this is better. They are tuned in very different manners. So if you want a cleaner, more detailed presentation, I would say perhaps the EW is the better choice. If you want a more fun and engaging presentation without losing too much in the cleanliness, then the 02 is the better option. Okay, so that's it. Much of what I said about the EW100 is what I'm going to say about the 1 year. The 1 year, really the only issue that it had is this energy that doesn't really show itself in the graph at around 4 to 6K, which in my case it can be a little bit of a problem sometimes depending on the IEM. But funny enough, with the wide bores, I was actually able to be quite tolerant. Let's put it that way. What I do find, other than that, with regards to the 02s, which the 02 yes does have, I would say, overall better mid execution than the 1 year, is that the bass there on the 1 year does seem, at least in the mid bass, does seem a tad more incisive. Okay, not a lot, but on occasion it does seem. Maybe it could be as well because of that extra energy that you have up top in the mids and upper mids, that gives that extra cleanliness to the impact of the slams. But that's it. Overall, which of the two I think is the better one? I'm gonna say very much the same situation as with the EW100. There isn't a real clear winner here. Okay, there isn't, honestly. So I'm gonna say these two. Okay, now compared here to the True 2, they are basically very similar sounding, everything. And I'm gonna say what I said earlier. I actually think that they might even share the same driver, to be honest, because the True 2 is definitely the one here that, without the zero in the equation, was the one that had the most bass energy. And when I compare it to the 02, the bass sounds almost the same. They sound almost identical. There's the advantage of a metal shell and a smaller fit on the True 2. I would say the accessories are about equal, maybe a little bit edging out on the True 2. This is a tough one to choose here. Okay, it will be down to personal preference. Compared to the Nuo, the Zero is a better IM in the story. It's just a better IM. The Nuo, like I said in my review, it just does. It's not offensive. It doesn't. It's not that it plays wrong or does anything bad or anything of the sort. No, but it just doesn't do enough to stand out with this crowd of IEMs that you have here, which are really very good. I mean, the budget IEM segment has become tremendously competitive. Okay, so but compared to the newer, this is just better. It's got better bass, it's got more clarity in the mids, more clarity in the highs. It's just a better IEM. Okay, so that's also out of the question, out of the way, which then leaves us then here with the 1 year, sorry, here I go again, with the Wyvern and with the Tangstrom one. Compared to the Wyvern, and the Wyvern, although it's Celeste markets it as a gaming IM, it's interesting how very competent it is in terms of playing music. It kind of reminds me of the G10 from EPZ, although the G10 is a little bit more expensive. The difference in the bass, although graphically it is noticeable, it isn't as significant as that when you listen to it. So I would say in terms of the bass, they're kind of overall the same situation, the same kind of level of performance, trading blows. Mids, again, the same kind of vibe. On the highs is where the 02 then does leap ahead, does sound a little bit cleaner. Although there's still some sort of a magic here on the Wyvern that I can't really identify. Interesting enough, I actually tried also the wide bore tips on the Wyvern, and the Wyvern with the wide tips becomes much closer to the 02's presentation. So although graphically, in terms of bass and treble, it doesn't seem to be on the same level as the 02, once you change the tips, or not, well, if you actually leave it with these tips, the bass always sounds basically the same. But once you do change those tips to wide bores, especially the upper frequencies become very similar. So again, we have a situation where it's a little bit difficult to choose between the two of them. I really like the fit and the look of the Wyvern, I really do. So I would say, you can't really go wrong here. And then finally, the Tangstrom one. In terms of the fit, the 02 is the winner, period. In terms of sound, I have a preference for the zeros, for the ones sound, sorry. The one just sounds overall more, it's not even a question of being more musical, although I do consider it to be probably the most musical IM out of all. It's the one that sounds the most high fidelity. It does have an added energy in the mid bass that would maybe lead you to believe that, oh, okay, the mid bass is going to be a little bit pronounced, a little bit excessive, and that's not the case. It doesn't. The bass is not, quality wise, it is a good quality bass, but the bass is slightly behind the zeros bass. I have to say that the zeros bass is ahead. Mids, the one has got better mids in my opinion, or maybe it's the way that those mids are married with the bass that it has and the treble that it has that just make it come across. They just sound more organic, more realistic. Okay, and the highs, they're not as extended as on the zero. The zero does have a little bit more highs, but again, it's the same situation. The way that they are married with the mids and the bass that you have, it just makes the overall presentation of the one be very, very engaging. It's a serious sounding IEM. Let's put it that way. Okay, so if, and to kind of be a little bit fair in my assessment so that people don't think I'm biased towards anything specific. Personally, myself, Tony, Akros, whatever, myself, I pin towards more the sound of the one. If I have to look in a broader scope and see what people will like more, I think most people will go more for the sound of the 02. It's got a more captivating sort of a sound that will, you have to listen to the one a little bit. Also, the one does have an issue, which, is a significant issue, mind you, which is the type of shell that it has. It's a make or break. So if it fits you well, it's one thing. If it doesn't fit you well, you're going to complain. So if the fit is not an issue, if it fits you properly, and you have the right tip on it, once you start listening to the one, and again, call it brain burn, call it whatever you want to call it, there's a magic on the one that it just, you feel that you are listening to something which is way more expensive than what you initially are thinking it should be sounding like. So that's me, but this is more fun. This is more, I would say this is going to be the more popular one. All right, anyway guys, just to kind of recap, 02, definitely an improvement over the original 0, without a question, definitely an improvement compared to the current, let's say, more popular choices. It's very much, at least with these ones, it's very much a trading of blows here and there. Wins in some areas, loses in others. But there's nothing that you could say, oh no, the 02 just absolutely destroys the competition and just walks. No, there are IEMs that it obviously beats its original sibling, the 0, the Zigat Nuo, and a few others that it does beat. But these ones, which I think are the ones that are the better ones at this price range, it trades blows with them. Okay, it very much trades blows with them. And that's it, guys. I'll show you another graphs and we'll wrap it up. Hi guys, and welcome up to the graph section for the 02 from 7 Hertz. I've got 3 graphs here because they represent the 7 Hertz, the 02 with the original tip, with a medium-sized white bore and with a large-sized white bore. And you can see it's actually quite interesting. With the original tip, which is the one which is now emphasized, the extension past 10K is not much. The rest is decent. When I then put the medium white bore, extension kind of remains the same past 10K, but just changes its profile slightly. Excuse me. But when I put the large size white bore tip, I get a lot more extension past 10K. Fair enough, the coupler related peak is not exactly there on the 8K mark, but it's difficult because the tip is a large size, so it's difficult to insert it into the coupler. But you do notice that the sound is more open, more spacious. So there's definitely an improvement in the sound stage. And it was with this tip that I did most of or all of the listening actually. Compared then to the original 0, also using the large size white bore tip, I think it's self-explanatory. More bass on the new 0, and the original 0, a little bit more detail. Past 10K, this area sounds more detailed because it also doesn't have as much bass. Okay, so that's that one out of the way. Compared to the Celeste Wyvern using the same wide bore tip, Very similar to the Graph, as you can see, very similar. And they actually sound similar, I would say, up to the treble and past the past 10k area. They sound very similar. There's just a little bit more extra twinklies and sparklies. It's not so much here that you notice the difference, funny enough. It's here that you notice the difference. The 02, it's got just a little bit extra more twinklies and sparklies. And considering that the Wyvern is an IEM that is marketed as being a gaming IEM, and with this kind of a curve, you can definitely see that, yes, in terms of soundstage, imaging, and so on, it will definitely do its thing. I would say that the 02 will also be a pretty competent gaming IEM, okay? Compared to the Chew 2, which is this one here, you can see what I mentioned earlier, that they graph very equal. The only difference the difference that you find here mainly is the fact that I'm using KBE 07 yellow sized, so the large size tips on the Chew 2, which account then for that slight difference that you see here. But surprisingly, when you listen to it, they sound almost identical. I had a really hard time distinguishing between the two of them, okay? So that's the Chew 2 there. The next one I'm showing you now is the EW100P from SimGod. The EW100P, the biggest difference that you notice here is that, okay, it doesn't extend as much, but the bass overall just sounds a little bit cleaner, but not as girthy, while definitely there's more details, more twinklies and sparklies of the SimGod. So the SimGod up here is more detailed, without a doubt, okay? So that's why I said, if you want more details, go for the SimGod. If you want more fun and engagement, go for the 02. Although they are both very good, and with a lot of music, they actually sound very equal. Okay. Compare now here to the Tangzhou One Ear, and let me change the color of the One Ear as well. Let me make it I don't know. Let's make it red. With the Tangzhou, the bass, you don't really perceive that much of a difference in the bass. And on the 1 year, let me just mention as well that I'm also using the whiteboard tips, because that whiteboard tip does help control this area here, which does have a tendency of sounding very much, there. You do notice there's a little bit of a difference here at the top end, where the 02 just slightly edges out the 1 year, but they again are very similar. I mean, there is not much difference, as you can see. I mean, 1 year with the 02. If I add here the Wyvern, the Celeste, again very similar, not much of a difference. If I now throw in the Chew 2, okay, the Chew 2's got a little bit more there, but you don't perceive it that way. They are all very similar. When I said that earlier, that there's not much of a difference here, where the differences are going to be in the bass and how the bass then affects the rest. I was being very sensible, let's put it that way. And then finally the Tangzhou, the one, and this is the one that actually maybe has the more different graph. A lot more mid bass and apparent bleed into the mids, but actually it's the one that it's more neutralish, and it's this, I don't know if it's this neutrality or this balance that is struck between the frequencies. There's something about the one that just makes me draw, I'm just pulled more towards its sound. Yes, it does have the issue of the fit, where the 02 obviously is a much better and much easier IEM to fit, but I have to say that I like the musicality. I like the organicness of the sound that the one does give me. Although, like I mentioned earlier, I can see that maybe the 02 will probably be the one that's the most popular. But the main thing is, yeah, compared to the original 0, it is an improvement. Compared to I was forgetting here the Ziget Nuo. Oh my, I was forgetting here the Ziget Nuo. Let me just get it here. And compared to some IEMs, yes, it is superior overall, but compared to these ones that I have selected here, that superiority is not an outright superiority. Compared to the Ziget Nuo, you would think that in terms of the bass, they kind of sound similar. No, I like the bass more of the 02. It's just ever so more cleaner. Let me just change the color here to red as well, so it can just show itself a little bit more. And then you would think by how the top end is graphing, that they would sound again similar, and it doesn't. The NUO is definitely darker sounding than the 02, definitely darker sounding. And as I mentioned in the review of the NUO, it's not that the NUO is a bad sounding IEM or anything. So no, it's not a bad sounding IEM. It sounds fine, it sounds good, but it just doesn't bring anything really radically new or different or something that makes it stand out as compared to the others. And that's it, guys. I hope, although a little bit late, I was able to clarify as well some doubts or some questions that you guys might have about the 02. As always, like and subscribe. Any questions you might have, please feel free to ask. And if you want me to, like I said, compare it to any other IEMs, some KZs or something, I can do it as well, not a problem. All right. Take care. Have a good one. Bye-bye.